If you've been following the gaming scene lately, there's one game in particular that's taken the entire games industry by storm. And no, it's not just the Oblivion remake. Remaster. Questionable. As exciting as that is, the real standout right now is Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a game that seemingly came out of nowhere and blew everyone away, myself included. What's even more surprising is that it was not made by a AAA studio, but instead by a small passionate team of just 33 developers, many of whom interestingly enough used to work at Ubisoft. Just let that sink in. Let's start with the very basics. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is the debut game from Sandfall Interactive, a very small French studio made up of ex-Ubisoft devs, as I said. The number of how many worked on the game is always confusing, as it said it's 33 developers, but then the end credits show way more. This is one game, and not just any game, a 30+ hour visually stunning, emotionally investing story, and it's just a very mechanically fresh RPG that's honestly competing with the biggest games of 2025, and I'd even say in many ways outperforming them. Even the legendary Shuhei Yoshida, one of the most respected names in gaming, literally called it a beautiful indie game that outshines AAA. He pretty much said how insane it is that a team this small could produce something this massive and polished. And I think anyone who's played the game can agree, because in an industry obsessed with bigger teams, bigger budgets and increasingly smaller creativity, Expedition 33 is kind of doing the impossible, and it's doing it better than most. Now this is not a quote-unquote nice for an indie kind of game, as I'd easily say this is Game of the Year material, and it has a great chance to win it, even if GTA 6 releases this year. And yes, that might be a hot take, but I'll stand by it. Remember, Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year, so I know for a fact that this game can also do that if it wants to. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is still my Game of the Year for this year, but this is a very close second so far. Of course, I haven't finished it, but by the time I do finish it, I can tell it will be up there. Now, you have to realize that this is a AA game, or an indie game if you want to say that, and it contains so many voiced characters from industry legends like Ben Starr, Charlie Cox, and so many more. Just take a look at the list on screen. Now, it is a bit strange how they did manage to get such talented voice actors for a small company, but I guess they did it. I haven't really looked into it much. It's also a game that is entirely turn-based with its combat system, which I do see how it can throw a lot of people off. But this turn-based combat feels different compared to other turn-based combat systems, because it feels thoughtful, and it's even got real-time dodges, parries, QTE counters, and experimental modifiers called Pictos that let you customize your party in genuinely meaningful ways. I was never really a fan of turn-based combat games myself. That was until a few years ago, when I tried Persona 3, and my mind was instantly changed. In fact, some of my favorite games of all time are turn-based. Baldur's Gate 3, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and Infinite Wealth, the Persona series, and now this. Now, I haven't even touched on the story, which by the way has one of the most unique premises we've seen ever. I won't spoil the story of course, but the very basic premise is that humanity is trapped in a never-ending cycle of death and rebirth. Every year, a mysterious entity known as the Paintress awakens and paints a number. Anybody of that age instantly dies. You play as Gustav, the last surviving member of Expedition 33, a group that's trying to destroy this cruel cycle once and for all. And that's it, that's the setup. And from there, Clair Obscur explores grief, time, generational trauma by the way, and the people desperate to fight fate. In fact, I did not even know who the characters were in the prologue, and within 30 to 45 minutes, I already shed a tear, and I really get emotional in video games. Like, something seriously emotional has to happen for me to shed a tear. Now, even visually, it's a stunning game. This is Unreal Engine 5 working with art direction, not against it, and that's quite rare to see. I'm not entirely sure what the actual name of the art style is called, but I do know it's French, and it's a very artistic approach with, elegant architecture, these dreamline palettes and kind of oil painting looking creatures and stuff like that. And even the soundtrack. I kid you not, I'm not even exaggerating, but this is probably one of the most unique soundtracks in any game ever. And what's crazier is that the soundtrack is over 8 hours long, and the main story is only 35 hours long. That's real dedication right there. So how did a very small team pull this off when some AAA games with teams of thousands collapsed under their own weight? That's the real question we should be asking. Not just that Clair Obscur is a great game, but what it proves. Because this industry, let's be honest, is feeling bloated. The AAA model is broken. We've got $200 million live service projects failing in 6 months. We've got studios laying off staff after their game succeeds. And we've got publishers nickel and diming players with deluxe editions, battle passes and always online DRM in a single player game. And you know, Sandfall Interactive said fuck that and just shut all those studios up. No EULA shit, no intrusive DRM, no always online BS, just a clean, honest launch. Priced fairly, by the way, at just $50, which is insane, especially for today's day and age. It's also available on every major platform and Game Pass, and made by developers who actually wanted to make something great. And the result is one of the highest user scores ever on Metacritic, a 9.6. That's I believe higher than The Witcher 3 and even Baldur's Gate 3. Now, if you haven't realized it by now, this game is a wake-up call. What Clair Obscur Expedition 33 really shows us is that this industry's best ideas are not coming from the top down, they're coming from the bottom up. From Larian, from CD Projekt Red when they were still small, from Warhorse Studios, and now from Sandfall Interactive. Small or mid-sized teams doing what the big billion-dollar AAA studios won't, and that's taking risks, respecting players, telling weird specific heartfelt stories, delivering complete games with a vision. Now imagine somebody inside Ubisoft or EA trying to pitch this game. It would have been shut down immediately or halfway through pre-production for being too strange or too risky. And you know, honestly, that reminds me of a man named Serge Hascoe. If you don't know who Serge Hascoe is, he was Ubisoft's former chief creative officer. He's now gone, thankfully. And this is the same guy who cancelled a King Arthur themed fantasy RPG named Avalon, even after they hired Mike Laidlaw, the Dragon Age creative director, to lead it. He just killed the project, said he was suspicious of it. That was his reasoning. Wild. Also, yeah, let's just say it, fuck Serge Hascoe. Beyond his creative decisions, the man was at the center of a ton of Ubisoft workplace scandals, harassment, sexism, blocking female protagonists in video games, calling cutscenes pointless, and pushing the company away from linear storytelling altogether. There's a lot of baggage there, but I'll stop before this video turns into a whole different video. That said, I know there are Ubisoft developers who watch my videos, and if you're one of them, I'm sorry, genuinely, because I know how talented and determined you guys are, but I also know how often your creativity gets blocked by decisions made at the top. And hey, to the Ubisoft Montreal developer watching this, who I won't name, I really hope Assassin's Creed Hex turns out great. I've always had the most faith in Ubisoft Montreal out of all their studios, because there's real creativity and at least there's a spark. I just hope they let you use it. But going back to Clair Obscur 33, there's been some discussions online about people calling this the best Final Fantasy game in years. And yeah, I get it, there are clear inspirations here. Turn-based combat, big storytelling, deep party dynamics, musical flair, but this is not Final Fantasy in any way, shape or form. If anything, it's his own thing, and honestly, that's even better. It does not need to carry the weight of nostalgia. It doesn't need to cater to decades of expectations. It gets to be weird and dark and French and melancholic and beautiful on its own terms. And that freedom, that ability to be something else, is what makes it feel so fresh. Now, it might remind you of Final Fantasy or Persona, sure, but to me, it's none of them, and that's the point. Oh, and just going back to the devs again, this was made by a handful of people, most of them former Ubisoft talent. The result is a game that sold over 1 million copies in its first few days, and that's copies sold, not players. This is a game that's dominating all sorts of discussions, trending on social media, and making headlines for all the right reasons. The takeaway here is not screw AAA games. A lot of them are still amazing, but Expedition 33 proves that you don't need a few $100 million to make something breathtaking. You just need a team that gives a damn. It proves that turn-based combat still has room to grow, that emotional storytelling isn't really a niche, that style and substance can exist together, that creative vision matters more than budget, and to me, most importantly, it proves that when a game respects its audience, the audience will notice. I do think we're finally seeing people wake up to that. A lot of gamers are tired of getting burned, tired of pre-orders gone wrong, tired of open world games that take 80 hours to say nothing. I liked Assassin's Creed Shadows, but there's way too many flaws with that game, and a lot of the time it feels soulless. Mind you, the budget for that game is well over $200 to $300 million and developed by thousands of people. Oh, and by the way, I kid you not, there's more motion capture in Clair Obscur Expedition 33 than in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And one of these games is an indie game. Like what? I do also think many people are craving stories that mean something, worlds that feel handcrafted, combat that challenges us in new ways, visuals that look different, not just more realistic, because to me art style is way more important than realistic graphics. And you know, I can't fathom how AAA companies, especially Ubisoft out of all of them, just cannot see that. The success of Expedition 33 proves that there's a huge audience for this. People want to support originality, they want fresh ideas. I can see this game being studied, but not for its gameplay or its story, but for how it was made, for what it says about the gaming industry. I think we need more games like this, games that are made by passionate people, games that surprise you. So if you haven't played Clair Obscur Expedition 33 yet, do yourself a favor and go buy the game, to not only support this very small team, but to experience one of the best games this year.